Hello, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Ferguson. I'm a graduate student at Eastern New Mexico University studying uh, communications, and I'm looking to get my master's this December. For my book report, I read the book India Connected, um, Mapping the Impact of New Media. And I found this title very interesting, mainly because it focused on my wife's culture. She was born and raised in Abu Dhabi, but however, she has an Indian background and she's lived in India for a few years. Um, so, to get down into it, India is one of the largest nations around today. In fact, they have approximately 996 million people who currently use mobile devices. That is second only to China. India, however, has a very low internet usage. In the city, however, it's a high percentage, but in the rural areas, it is very unlikely that you will see a computer, a television, or anything for that matter. They are very poor in the rural areas, and some of them, if not most, are illiterate. A fun fact about Facebook for most people. In 2018, Facebook had 8 million users in India, and by 2015, that number increased by 100 million. Let's see here. Media is still new to developing nations such as India, and they're more treated as a welfare item. Most people in India would have a mobile phone before they have food. And let's see here. I'm just looking through my notes, to be honest. So, like I said, this book, when I first looked into it, I looked at it more as a commentary, but as I read on to it and I looked at the publisher, I saw that it said Sage on it. So it actually turned out to be a somewhat of a textbook. However, it came as a narrative. Each chapter had its own individual author, and there is a foreword, and this book did have 2 editors. Let's see here. So, when we look at new media, we see it as being a tool for connecting people and sharing great ideas. And that's how India saw it as well. The Indian government tried at first to block it, censor it, but as time came around, they lightened up to it. Their politicians started using it, and it became a valuable tool and asset for the government and people to connect and share their ideas. What I found interesting in this book in particular is that it mentioned that there's a lot of use of screen time, and it says because of over-the-top services like Netflix, WhatsApp, etc., WhatsApp, it becomes difficult for consumers to know if there's a difference economically between land phones and cell phones. So, I find it interesting that I talk to some of the younger people in generation, and they have no idea what a landline is. They're more interested in the two-thumb era, where everything's talked by text, and the book even mentioned that it's affected the way that we communicate in terms of people would rather talk over text instead of in person. Let's see here. Which is true nowadays, to be honest. My favorite chapter in this whole book was chapter 4. It was titled Government and Marketed. Chapter 4, give me 1 second. Talked about politics and the use of social media involvement in the elections and how politicians use them. The book strongly states that politicians reached out to the younger generations by using social media outlets such as Facebook and Twitter, and that gave them an edge compared to the candidates who didn't. I'm sick, so it's kind of hard for me to speak right now and kind of stay focused, so that's why I'm looking back and forth. But politicians who use social media aspects like Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter seem to benefit more than the candidates who did not. And they gave a great example of the 2008 presidential election, U.S. presidential election, between Barack Obama and Senator McCain. Barack Obama, if we all remember that election, was coined the Facebook election because it was the first time that social media played a big role in politics and to spreading the message, reaching out to younger generations. And when the reports came out that there was, after the elections, and they gave polls to the younger generation, and they asked what got you into elections, how did you keep up close to your favorite candidates, etc. They said largely the use of social media, Facebook and Twitter. They didn't get their information from conventional methods like television or a newspaper. They got it from scrolling through their phones. And this chapter went on saying that this will continue to happen, and it even happened in the latest prime minister electoral election. I'm sorry, I have a problem pronouncing the prime minister's name. I would not want to butcher it. But he heavily used social media to reach the public, and it gained to his advantage as the other parties were kind of hesitant. Same with the presidential election of 2008, where each candidate used social media, but the one that more aggressively used social media came out the winner. Let's see. What I also found interesting, and this is going on to chapter 5 at this point, and this was kind of the depressing but true side of media in India and in everywhere. Social media has been used as a portal to tell stories that are not usually spoken. A couple stories in India, for example, was the Anna Harza and the Delhi gang rape. Anna Harza was an Indian protester who did a peaceful protest by doing a sit-in, and he stopped eating for a while. Social media caught on about his events, and of course it spread like wildfire. And he ended up being held on a status flight like Gandhi, which was the first time in a while that's happened. And then what I really wanted to get into is what my wife even constantly talked to me about, because we were just getting to know each other at this time, was the Delhi gang rape. So the story behind the Delhi gang rape was there was this 23-year-old girl who got sexually abused and beaten and shoved out of a bus, left for dead. Nobody wanted to talk about her, and even talked to her, nobody approached her, etc. But a few people did. She got to the hospital, and unfortunately, 13 days later, she died. The events of this rape spread like wildfire again across social media, and there was posts, there was Facebook groups, there was Twitter feeds, etc. about what was going on. And they even, when the accused was acquitted, there was a lot of backlash from the social media, and the government tried to do some things about it. The book didn't get into much detail about that, but it did mention that there was a huge backlash from the events of the accused being acquitted. And India tried to censor out these events, like most Middle Eastern countries try to do. They try to show their best side, and if anything is going against them, they try to censor it. I know that because I lived in Abu Dhabi for 2 years, and I read the news, and then I hear the word on the street, and I'd rather listen to the news that I hear on the street as being more truthful than what I hear on the paper. However, not saying that the paper is uncredible, it's just that it's heavily monitored by the government. So if you want to get the truth, you have to go to multiple sources. So, in conclusion, I'm sorry. First off, I know I've been bouncing around, and I haven't been able to cover most of the book. I just highlighted a few things. This is a very good read. I would not call it a textbook, but it is set up like one, even though it's narrative. And it's very interesting if you want to learn more about what's going on outside of the United States. This book is heavily focused on mobile phones and how smartphones and other devices as social networking and other means of technological applications and such advancements are changing the world. But this is something that even the book mentioned is not studied often. It's something that we honestly don't think of studying because it's in our everyday lives. We can't go a day or two without our smartphone. Unfortunately, I'm always connected. If I'm not in front of my computer, I'm either checking my Apple Watch or I'm on my iPhone. There's even applications now that track your screen time. So why I found this book to be so important, yes, it said India connected, but honestly, I could say this is the world connected because it talks about how media, especially new media, the social media age, which if you grew up in the 2000s or late 90s, you grew up through it. This is what you know. So we don't think about studying it, but it is making a big impact on our lives and how we are changing from being face to face to being here onto a screen. And for me, and on my honest opinion, it's kind of sad because I like the face-to-face interaction. But this is the way that the world is, and there's a lot of good. There's a lot of mobilization and stuff, but there's also a lot of problems with it as well. So this book, great read. I suggest anybody to pick it up. It only cost me about $10 on Amazon, plus the shipping, so that's not bad. And yes, if you have any questions any further, I will get to you. Unfortunately, like I said, I keep on apologizing for this. I am sick, so my mind is going left to right, and it's going all over the place. So, if you got anything out of this, I just want you to know that new media is a thing, and it is shaping our world. And the question is, are we letting it shaping the world for the good or the bad? It's a great tool, but it can be construed the wrong way. Thank you, and have a great day.